I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate. We think too much and feel too little. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. All will be lost. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, to do away with greed. Now let us fight to free the world, to fulfill that promise. Let us all unite.
Welcome, folks, to the Corporation Nation radio program. I'm Clint Richardson, your host, and it is the 18th of February, a Tuesday. Welcome. Well, today I'm going to talk about some controversial stuff, because it's just me and I like to rant and all. But, it's the second anniversary of my father's death. My father was actually a captain in the Air Force. And he was a navigator, so he was up there in the plains, basically dropping bombs on people. And I remember as a kid, he used to tell stories about it. My mom told stories about her life living in where were they? Somewhere around Vietnam and Korea. I remember thinking, wow, that sounds so great. They had such a life. Got to travel, got to do all those things when they were young. And of course, that was my mentality because, we seem to forget when we talk about war. Well, you know what? Let's not say war anymore because there is no war. We haven't been at war since World War II. And, that's what really, really peeves me. Is that we celebrate the act of war when there's no justification for it. That is the American way. And that's why what we're going to be talking about tonight is so darn controversial. And, it's really only controversial to people who live a lie. That's it. The truth always harms people who live in a fictional world, who believe something that just isn't true. So if you're living the lie, if you're an ex-soldier, if you used to be military, if you are currently military, hey, listen up. You know what? I'm one that doesn't support you. You know what? I don't support the troops. Oh, no. When I type in support the troops into Yahoo search engine, you know how many support the troops websites come up, from Facebook to Wikipedia? I mean, they actually have a support the troops thing for Wikipedia because it was such a popular catchphrase. It was sold to America. America, this was the biggest fallacy that was ever put upon your shoulders. Support the troops. Don't support the war. No. Don't support the war because there is no war. Support the troops. You see the difference? What a fallacy. How can you possibly support troops in a military function without supporting the military function? That's like saying support rapists, but don't support the rape. Support the demolition team that's helping to build nations, but don't support nation building. No. Support the troops that are harming and killing and maiming and destroying everything. But no, don't support, quote unquote, the war. Do you understand how fallacious that statement is? I mean, have you ever stopped and actually thought, wait a minute, how can I support troops in a war without supporting the war. It doesn't make sense. It's the most ridiculous thing you'll ever come across. It's one of the best catchphrases, one of the best con jobs, one of the best sales and marketing tools ever created by the U.S. government. And you know what? We all fell for it. Even though some of us recognize it as complete and pure fallacy. The problem with fallacy is that often it's very difficult to argue against it, because in some insane way it actually makes sense. Because, of course, we're going to support our fellow Americans. Of course we're going to, oh, I'm a bad guy if I say I don't support the troops. But wait a minute. How can I support the troops when I don't support the illegal occupations of the United States that those troops are participating in? Do people actually think before they say this ridiculous catchphrase, support the troops but don't support the war? I don't think they do. I think we're a bunch of parrots who live in a world of complete and utter fallacy. The trivium is dead, for all intents and purposes, when it comes to patriotism. And it's an amazing thought, because the whole justification for and again, I'm using the word war, even though there is no war. You see, you, the people, and your attorneys, your representatives in government, have not justified a war. There's no declaration of war. You know what that means, of course? That means that there's no war crimes, because we're not at war. There's no war crimes. It's a corporation building, rebuilding, destroying so that the phoenix can rise from the ashes. Are you kidding me? There's no war. Geneva Conventions don't apply when there's no war. Thus we have Gitmo. Thus we have torture. Thus we have rendition, the taking of people outside of the country so that they can be tortured. Oh, yeah, that's much better. And held indefinitely. See, folks, here's the problem. You are supporting something by supporting the troops. You are supporting the acts of the U.S. government. Remember what we talked about yesterday with Ed Rivera. What is the United States? What is the Department of Defense? It's not what we think. It's a nation builder. It's a peacekeeper. But of course, how do you keep the peace unless you first cause havoc and destruction? How do you rebuild unless you first destroy? This is where we're at. You see, we don't support it, and yet we do, because what's paying for all of these soldiers? What's paying for it? Yes, you got it. The national, quote, national debt. That's you, unfortunately. That's in your name, every single one of you. Every single person out there is responsible for what's happening, not only in other countries, but in our own countries. We can talk till we're blue in our face. We can say get guns. We can say get food, storable food. We can say, all these things. But it's right there. I mean, it's right there in the oath. Right there in the oath of every soldier, every president, every governor, every attorney. What does the oath say? That the purpose of the military is to protect the United States. Not the people. The word people is in no oath. No oath contains the flesh and blood men and women who occupy the land of the United States or any other country. We are either foreigners or we are domestics. That's what we are. We even call ourselves, foolishly, we call ourselves civilians. Civilians? Do you know what the word civilian means? It means you're on the roster to become a soldier. It's our fault. Stand or fall. Perfect song. We'll be back, folks.
Take your supergel, nanoscale weather machines. All of these technologies exist in some form today.
Look, Mummy, there's no plane up in the sky.
Goodbye, blue sky. Goodbye, blue sky. Goodbye.
Now imagine planes coming over your neck of the woods and dropping bombs. You see, Americans have never had that. Americans have no clue, and I include myself in this. But see, I have empathy. I can empathize. I don't know if that's a trait that's going away or if it's been vaccinated out of us like they said they were going to do so many years ago. I don't know. But I can empathize, at least. I can empathize. I was just looking up the word honor because, of course, everybody in the military is, they go, oh, it's an honor code. Well, it's an honor. We're honorable. There's nothing honorable about the military. You're supporting the President of the United States. You are doing nothing on behalf of the people of the United States. There is no honor in the military. I'm sorry to have to break that. Let's read what honor means. And I'm going back to 1828 here in Webster's English Dictionary language, whatever it's called. To revere, to respect, to treat with deference and submission, and perform relative duties to. Remember what the natural law is, folks? You see, the military is so far from natural law, I couldn't think of anything that's more distant. What is natural law? Natural law says, do no harm to others. Your duty under natural law is to not force anything upon anyone else, let alone their death, their dismemberment. Right? That is respect. To manifest the highest veneration for in words and actions, to entertain the most exalted thoughts of, to worship and to adore. It uses Bible scripture to explain that all men should honor the Son, even as they honor the Father, from John. To dignify, to raise to distinction or notice, to elevate in rank or station, to exalt. Men are sometimes honored with titles and offices, which they do not merit. That's right out of the book, right out of the dictionary. Men are sometimes honored, revered, and dignified with titles and offices which they do not merit. What does it say? Out of the Bible. Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth in to honor, to glorify, to render illustrious, to treat with due civility and respect in the ordinary intercourse of life. The troops honored the governor with a salute. You see how different it is to actually have respect for human life compared to actually respecting an officer. What does that mean? It means you're going to obey orders without respect of natural law, of life. That's what it means. In commerce, what is honor? That's what we're really talking about. In commerce, honor is to accept and pay when due, as to honor a bill of exchange. Well, that's what we're really talking about, right? Because we're not talking about the natural realm. We're talking about a bunch of people who sign a contract to get a pension. By the way, the pension funds in the military are outrageous. It's well over $1 trillion. I can't remember what it is, $2 trillion, I think, of investments that are in the military pension funds alone. That's just part of the federal government. That's why, of course, well over $1 trillion gets taken out of the taxpayer base as national debt every year to pay those pensions. So what's the difference here? You see, when honor becomes a legal entity, when honor takes upon itself the face of artificiality and becomes a legal concept, it becomes simply an obligation to pay a debt, or in this case, to follow an order. You see, respect has been twisted and maimed and has been created into something other than what honor really is. It's not the honor in the Bible. It's not the honor that I have for my mother and father. It's not the one that's in the commandment. It's not that kind of honor. You've heard of honor among thieves? What's the difference? Honor among soldiers? Sure, you shot that puppy, threw it over a cliff. Sure, you shot that child, raped that mother. I won't tell. This is the honor that's in the Masonic leagues. The Masonic, that's the kind of honor that we have going on. This is why a lot of police are Masons. This is why a lot of judges are Masons. Why a lot of chiefs of police, especially, are Masons, because there is honor. When the Mason holds up his hands in a V, I think it is, that is a Masonic call for help. The judge is going to let him go. Why do you think so many cops get off or never have to go to court in the first place? It's a different type of honor. It is not the Christian honor. It is not the honor that is bestowed or supposed to be bestowed as far as respect of elders and all of that. No. There is nothing truly, naturally honorable about being in the military. Most people do it as a career choice. I mean, can you imagine a career? What's your job? Oh, I have a license to kill. Oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes send me across to other countries, and they have me kill people, and it's good because I get a pension and medical benefits. I might kill myself. I might, do all the things that soldiers are doing. In fact, not too long ago, there was a nice little article that soldiers, I'll just read it straight out of, this was actually a Pacifica article by Aaron Glantz. He's a journalist who's been covering the stories of U.S. military vets returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. And it's very simple. He says, quote, on every night, 200,000 people who have put on the uniform and served this country sleep homeless on the streets, unquote. Does that sound very honorable to you? Does it sound like these soldiers are in an honorable contract with a completely dishonorable government? I don't think so. Do you think that these people, these 200 people, you know what really upsets me is they probably still feel like they did something right. They're probably sitting out there homeless or sitting out there in mental institutions, killing themselves with the thought that they somehow were doing it right, but they don't understand what happened. What could have possibly happened? Why aren't people really supporting me? Yeah. We have the catchphrase. We wear the T-shirt. We tie a ribbon. We wear a bracelet that says support the troops. You know where that money goes? It goes into a charity, and what do? Just like government, they invest the money. What do you think they do with your Red Cross donations? They invest the money. Go look at the Red Cross financial reports. Most of it's advertising. The rest goes into a fund to help future problemed nations or peoples. See, it's the same thing. There's maybe two charities that I've found that I actually support. One of them is UMCOR. I did a video on UMCOR, actually. UMCOR is one of the locations is here in Salt Lake City. All right, folks, stay with us. We'll be back.
Wake up, wake up. Wake up and look around you. We're lost in space and the earth is your home.
First of all, let me take just a moment to thank you for allowing me back into your homes. If this is your first time with us, let me extend a personal invitation. Let's build a happy little cloud. Let's build some happy little trees. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here. It's in your world. You're the creator. Find freedom on this canvas.
Welcome back, folks.
Believe that you can do it.
Share the corporation,
You
please.
can do it.
First of all, I'd like to say hi. Give a hearty hello to our chat room. That is corporationnation.chatango.com. Always some good stuff being thrown around there. In fact, Lark from Texas just threw up an article that caught my eye. 10 prison security techniques being implemented on the American people. Now, I've commented before, as many have, that we are and have always been since, well, truly since the creation of the Constitution, but really since the Civil War with no ending, according to the government itself, that, of course, the Civil War couldn't end because, in other words, martial law had to continue. Because the United States did not want to recognize the fact that the Confederacy was actually a real nation, that had done everything to make itself a second independent nation. Because if it would have done that, just like today, where we don't declare wars, if it would have acknowledged the Confederacy as a true nation, it would have had to given them all the benefits and privileges of prisoners of war. Right? We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that with Iraq or Afghanistan or anybody. That's why we've been to 55 countries now, and we don't offer such services. We don't implement war crimes treaties and everything like that, because we're not at war. There's no war. It's not war, people. It's corporate profiteering at the expense of lives. It is the insurance of human capital management. It's not war. Don't be silly, rabbit. You see, it's so frustrating because we are in an open-air prison, folks, and this article is great. It's proof of that. It's wonderful. Blacklisted news. 10 prison security techniques being implemented on the American people. Source, Police State, USA. Cameras and movement tracking. You ever noticed how many cameras are going up? You ever noticed how many different apparatus are being posted all along the freeways, which are also being redone to basically land a plane anywhere they want to? Have you noticed all the cameras? We used to tease London and England, about all their cameras. Over 1 million cameras, CCTV. Well, folks, welcome. Welcome to New London. We're here. We facial recognition. My God, we have everything now. Drug testing. You heard about these people who are pulled over and the police officer demands to poke them to take their DNA, or to we have the alcohol tests already. Drug testing. My God, what do they do in prisons, folks? These are all the things they do in prisons. Metal detection and weapon confiscation. How many metal detectors do you have to go through per day? Well, it used to be none. Now you can't go to a high school without one. You can't go to a grammar school hardly without having to walk through a metal detector. Your airports, sports games. You got crowd control. You see these police all dressed up and with body armor and sticks and mace and tasers. Folks, this is no different than if you're in a prison. You're going to see the same exact thing. A bunch of non-lethal weapons. Because prison guards are not allowed to carry guns within the prison population. Well, that's what the guys up on the roofs are for. The same guys that killed Kennedy. That's what they're for. Checkpoints and random searches. Hey, got that at the airport too. Mail surveillance. Do you even know that your mail is surveilled? New York Times reported on how the United States Postal Service uses a mail isolation control and tracking program to create a permanent record of who is corresponding with who. Of course, and that's snail mail. What about email? What about all your... Do you think there's really privacy? I talk to people who do IT and just swear by their... just swear by their anti-virus protection and their anti-spyware. they don't realize all you have to do is a cursory look. I did the research myself. Do a cursory look, and you'll find that the same companies who are writing the virus protection are writing the viruses. Just go look. You'll find it. How about telephone monitoring? Well, we used to be wiretaps, right? Well, for God's sake, now everything's digital. I'm talking on Skype now. By the way, hi. Hi, NSA. You bastards. You don't have my consent to be listening right now, just so you know. You'll be acting under color of law. If you might want to look at that, because that means you're complicit now that you know. You have my notice that you are going to serve 10 years in prison if you continue. You're acting under a color of law. Go look it up. Go look at the FBI website. It tells you right there that if you're acting under color of law, you're going to be in trouble. Yeah, right. Lockdowns. How about when they locked the Boston? How about when they locked Boston down in 2013? How about the door-to-door searches after the shootings? How about, how many times how about when the president comes to town? You know, you ever see the pictures of Hitler going through town? He's up there. He's all being celebrated. People loved Hitler. Obama, he's got to be behind some glass that's bulletproof, right? And you have to block off streets, and you have to, Gaddafi didn't have to do that. There's videos of him going for hours, waving at the people waving back, loving him. I mean, this kind of security is for two purposes: prisons and dictators. Real dictators that hide behind the concepts of democracy and freedom. Remember what freedom means, folks. Freedom means to obey the law. Don't be fooled by that word. Freedom is a political term. And finally, they list snitching. You can look at all the see something, say something. National Terrorism Advisory System. Folks, this is the military. Whether it's Department of Homeland Security, whether it's the CIA, whatever it is, it's all under the President of the United States. All of it. Now, this brings me back to my father. Again, my father died 2 years ago. He had a military funeral. They even asked us if we wanted to have jets fly over the tomb, over the cemetery. And, of course, I was like, Mom, can we please not do that? It's bad enough we have to listen to guns going off, some salute for some... Like I said, he sat in a plane. I used to listen to his stories. He sat in a plane and bombed people. Okay, well, that was brave. Did they have planes? Oh, no, there was no way he could have got shot down. He was too high. He was a bomber. No, there was no threat. They didn't have an Air Force. They didn't have a Navy. I don't even think Vietnam is on the sea. I'd have to check. There's no threat. But here's what really, really gets my goat about this. You see, my father was, and I'm going to actually look for somebody, if anybody knows anybody out there, by the way, who can explain this whole system so that, I'm not heartless here. The one thing that I do agree with is that we should be taking care of these people who are brainwashed into becoming soldiers for all their health problems, and that includes my father. Okay, brainwashing, nobody can escape brainwashing. We get brainwashed every day. Half the radio you're listening to, including the alternative media, is brainwashing. So, I'm not heartless. We do need to take care of all people, including soldiers who were harmed in what they call the line of duty. Remember, though, duty is not the same as natural law duty. It's the bad kind of duty. It's the obligation. It's following orders without a soul. It's killing people under threat of duress and imprisonment, court-martial. That's what it really is. So, again, freedom, duty, all these words have dualistic meanings. And in the military, none of them have to do with God. We'll be back, folks. Stay with us.
Aspect of your life through ideological hegemony. But if you think you need guns to stop tyranny, then what you waiting for? We've already stripped you of your liberty, privacy, civil rights, and dignity. You want some more? He's a rebel and a runner. He's a signal turning green. He's a restless young romantic, wants to run the big machine. He's got a problem with his poisons, but you know we'll find a cure. He's cleaning up the systems.
Welcome back, folks. You're in the Corporation Nation. Welcome to the show, folks. I want to give you a little history lesson. This little history lesson was bestowed upon me by an interview that I heard. It's actually quite a long interview, and it happened quite a while ago by a gentleman named Colonel Fletcher Prouty. Highly recommended if you can find it. I actually got a recording of it from somebody a long time ago. But Colonel Fletcher Prouty was a gentleman that was directly under the Joint Chiefs of Staff. What the heck are the Joint Chiefs of Staff? Well, those are the high military generals who, it's basically like a board of directors for a for-profit corporation, of course. So you could think of it as the head of the corporate espionage center. Corporations, of course, being nations. So the corporate takeover corral, I guess we could call it. But anyway, Fletcher Prouty, he said something that just blew my mind, and yet it's such an obvious foregone conclusion when you think about it. You see, in Vietnam, we had things like Air America, which is a pretty open secret at this point. I mean, it's pretty open as far as the cognizance of people that Air America was a CIA front. It was run by the CIA. In other words, when we say that, it was unofficial. The stuff that happens in the military is official. The stuff that happened in the CIA was unofficial. So let's take that a step further and let's look at the trials of one. What was his name? Colonel, the famous guy who was in the trials, and he kept denying. Oliver North, that's the guy. He kept denying and kept saying he couldn't talk about that. It was top secret. It was classified. I can't talk about that. I wasn't working for the military. And that's what he kept saying. And that was the truth. You see, he wasn't working, even though he was was a colonel, I think, in the military. He was being reassigned to the CIA. This is why his actions were not reportable to the oversight committee that was asking him his questions. Well, guess what, folks? The 8 or 9 years where we were carrying out clandestine operations in Vietnam, guess what? Yes, those were American soldiers. No, they were not working for the U.S. military. They were contracted out to the CIA. They were working under top secret clearances. Now, when I heard Fletcher Prouty talk about this, I was a little shocked, actually, but it made perfect sense. And so, a couple years ago, I actually asked a gentleman he's about 65, I think, and he was in Vietnam, and he was left there to die, basically, as a prisoner of war, sort of like what you might see in movies. He was thrown underground into a cage, and in the jungle, and was listed as missing in action. Now, you got to understand something here, folks. Why were men listed as missing in action, while at the same time the government knew they were alive and knew they might very well be in known prison camps. Why wasn't this being told to people? Why wasn't the wife of this gentleman told? Because he was working for the CIA. Absolute plausible denial. They could not very well announce that clandestine operations were happening in Vietnam because it wasn't a military operation. You see? So our nation, our president, under the auspices of the Central Intelligence Agency, left all of our soldiers there who were in trouble, who were imprisoned. Why? Because admitting that soldiers were in Vietnam would have meant admitting that we were in Vietnam way more illegally than we already were. It would have admitted that the CIA had its own military, its own equipment, its own tanks, its own planes, its Air America, and everything else. Total plausible denial. So this guy sat in a hole and has very, very horrific post-traumatic stress syndrome. Now, my dad, my father, again, he was a navigator, so he was up in the cushy seat just navigating the planes while they dropped bombs on completely innocent villagers. And I'm not proud of that one bit. And I don't care who knows about it. I'm not proud of that in any way, shape, or form. When we went to his funeral, they did the 21-gun salute, like I said. Afterwards, we were going through his military stuff, and we got presented the flag of the United States, which actually repulsed me. It didn't do me any honor to get a flag of I mean, we've talked about what the flag represents. We went over the history of the flag in a previous show. It has no honor. It was an insult to me. It was the reason for my father's miserable life, and let me tell you why. And again, if anybody knows anybody, come on the show and explain this so that other people who have suffered because of the things that went over in Vietnam, please contact me and let me know. There's advocates out there that will explain how soldiers can get 100% disability because they spent time in Vietnam, and of course, the government used Monsanto, Agent Orange, to destroy the foliage of the jungle, and so that, of course, they could get to the villagers below that were trying to protect their homeland. Those horrible, horrible insurgents who actually lived there and were being attacked by the U.S., that were being dropped a napalm upon. All right, so my father, after many, many years of suffering, he instantly gained weight after the war because he did spend time on the ground, although it was mostly in cushy hotels. But he was exposed to Agent Orange. What did it do? It caused horrible, horrible, horrible health conditions. Caused him to gain weight, get diabetes, a whole host of other horrible conditions. And he somehow lived to be in his 70s. I'm not sure how, but it's pretty amazing, really. But he was fortunate enough because an uncle of mine was one of these advocates. He's unfortunately passed away. But he showed him and helped him through the process of getting 100% disability, which now a lot of people are actually finally getting at the end of their lives, finally getting that. It's unfortunate that it's also retroactive because, of course, it was Monsanto, Agent Orange, that caused all the health problems. Now, if you think about that for a minute, folks, what is Monsanto doing today? You know, back then, it was using basically Roundup to kill everything in sight. We used Roundup to kill the foliage so that we could get to the people out there, right? Now we're using Roundup to kill everything but what Monsanto calls Terminator seeds. What Monsanto has developed as something that is, it's immune to the Agent Orange, which we call Roundup now. You thought about that? I mean, it's the same scenario. We are all suffering from genetically altered foods. Why are they genetically altered? Because Monsanto must have a unique, or in legal terms, it's novel, life form that it has created to patent. Without the patent, what would be the point? And, of course, the United States, who supported Monsanto's Agent Orange spraying in the first place, is going to, of course, give them the patent because the United States is the main supporter of and shareholder of Monsanto. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a massive corpocracy that is run by government. Imagine the fields are being sprayed with virtual Agent Orange to kill everything, just like they did in Vietnam. That's a horrible thought. I mean, that's a horrible, horrible thought to me. Anyway, folks, we'll be back, talk more about this, maybe take some calls. Stay tuned.
Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are men. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful. Let us use that power to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world to do away with greed. A world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Let us all unite.
Welcome back, folks, to the Corporation Nation. Well, that song is apropos, isn't it? What is the first word? Soldiers. Don't let these men with machine minds and machine hearts force you into servitude against the rest of your human population. Isn't that a perfect way of introducing what we're talking about today? What people don't know, and as my listeners know, I love etymology. I love the study of words, where those words come from. Well, the word soldier is actually it's the new version of an ancient word. In circa 1300, soldier, or French soldier, one who serves in the army for pay. Money, folks. You see, that's the real problem with the military. As opposed to the honorable militia, where men join to protect their families and their communities, men join the military for pay. There's a big, huge difference there. In fact, I would even venture to say it's a conflict of interest. Wouldn't you? Why did you join the military, son? Oh, well, it's a career. Even when you look it up in the dictionary, it's a someone who joins the military as a career. My God, what a career. I mean, what a horrible concept. Oh, yeah, I joined for the money. I'm going to go kill me some brown skins because I'm going to get paid minimum wage for it. And I'm going to get a pension. I'm vested in the military, you see. One who serves in the army for pay. Now, that's just the most recent, from the French word, a soldier. But it goes further, folks. I mean, a soldier actually originates, the word soldier, from the word solidus, or solidus. What was that? A Roman gold coin. Yep. The word soldier comes from a coin. A Roman golden coin. How do you think they got all them Roman centurions to do what they did? It wasn't because they were interested in protecting that that oligarchy they had. No, it was for gold. One having pay, from the Spanish soldado, or soldato, literally one having pay. You see, there's no honor in being a soldier. I'm sorry. One who serves in the army for pay. That's a mercenary. I mean, that is, that's what we really have. Again, is this controversial? No, it's the truth. It's the etymology of the word soldier. Am I being controversial? No, I'm being honest. I'm telling the truth. The only people that are going to get offended by this are the people who are vested. Just like the pensioners are going to get upset when I talk about public pensions. Just like government workers are going to be upset when I say government workers are killing the economy. You know, everybody that's vested is going to get upset. Everybody that's vested is going to think that it's controversial. That's a good thing about being a poor loner. That's a good thing about having no obligations and no corporate sponsors and no income and nothing, because I could say the truth. I could speak it from my soul. And I have nothing to be vested. I have nothing to protect. It's a wonderful feeling, actually. I mean, you know the saying that, what's the saying about being free, that you really can't be free till you lose everything or something like that? I don't know. Your mind will never be free while earthly things and positions in the army for pay have you. I mean, that's the God honest truth. All right, so, you know, my when I looked up the medals that my father received, and there were quite a few of them, I dare say he probably didn't deserve them because, like I said, he didn't do anything. I mean, what they were, and I mean that. I mean, there was no honor in his service. He didn't do anything except bomb people. What he got were medals, and this really put the final, you know, lid on the coffin for me. The medals were not military service medals. I was like, well, how can they not be military service medals? What they were, and this is so important to understand, I can't stress this enough. Listen, please, to what I'm saying right now. His medals that he was to pin on his lapel, they were for serving the president in a time of national emergency. Remember, I said there is no declared war. Congress doesn't declare war. They haven't declared a war since World War II. We've been in a state of military occupation of a corporation called the United States. We distinguished the difference between the United States and the United States of America quite distinctly yesterday. If you want to learn more, again, that was the Organic Law Institute, Ed Rivera. You see the difference? You see, his medals weren't for serving in honor. They were for serving clandestinely. So that means basically when he was bombing people in Vietnam, he wasn't working for the military. He was contracted out to the CIA. Yes, he was a captain in the military, but he wasn't working for the military. If he would have got shot down, he would have been denied. He wasn't there. He was not there officially because he was serving the president in a time of national emergency. There was no war. We were not in Vietnam for the most part. Oh, what a mess. And of course, you see, we hear about what are referred to as wars, Operation Desert Storm. We hear about all these things, but we don't hear the half of it because most of it's being done clandestinely. It's not reported in the news what's really happening out there because it's not officially happening. No more than Monsanto reports its corporate takeovers. No more than the banks report its. I mean, these are corporate espionage is not something you report. I mean, that's what we're talking about, corporate espionage. One corporate state taking over another and building a nation, destroying the infrastructure, giving lots of money to the Red Cross so that it can invest in more funds, and hiring private contractors to rebuild, like Halliburton. You think it's a coincidence that the president of Halliburton was elected vice president at the time when we go over and where Halliburton's services are going to be needed? You think it's ironic that the contract to feed the soldiers and to take care of the soldiers while they did nothing, while private soldiers that were private mercenaries like Blackwater were doing all the work? Do you think that what do people think? Okay, there's nothing honorable. There is nothing patriotic. There is nothing to salute. The whole thing is a scam. It's a sham. It's horrible. It's corporate espionage. It is the takeover and basically induction of the New World Order. That's really what it is. There's a reason that the United States military occupies so many countries. Hundreds. 190, I think it is. We'll be back, folks. Stay with us.
Scientists have been battling to understand what this unappealing object is all about. What the object is all about.
Information in the form of energy streams in simultaneously through all of our sensory systems in the form of energy. And then it explodes into this enormous collage of what this present moment looks like, what it feels like, and what it sounds like. Explodes into this enormous collage.
All right, folks, welcome back.
And in this moment, we are
Yes, the joys of war. Well, again, it's not really war. What can we say? Now, again, when I saw this, because I had already learned about the national emergencies, I'd read Schroeder's. If anyone's not familiar with Eugene Schroeder and the clan that he got together to do the research for the War Powers Act, if you type in the War Powers Act, you can probably and Eugene Schroeder, you can probably find the War Powers Act. I highly suggest people reading it. It's actually it's funny. It's got horrible grammar in it, and it's kind of all over the place. So I was actually trying to revamp it and put it into a script that I could make a movie out of. But basically, it's about the national emergency, and it's about how the Constitution is, for all intents and purposes, suspended, which is why the president can have his own little military, as my dad's metal alluded to. Service to the president of the United States, not to the people, not to the government, to the president. Which president? The one that's sitting in the throne of the holding company we call the United States. Yes. Well, what is a national emergency? And we went through this a bit on a previous show, but I think this is so important because, I mean, it's everything. It's why everything is happening. And we keep supporting the president. We keep electing a new president to sit on this thing we call the United States. And we basically, in that way, are supporting the decisions of that president to attack every single country out there that poses any or no threat at all other than having oil or using that oil to benefit the people. What is a national emergency? Black's Law defines it: a state of national crisis, a situation demanding immediate and extraordinary national or federal action. Congress has made little or no distinction between a state of national emergency and a state of war. Oh, well, now it's starting to make sense. So the reason my father was flying over there was a state of national emergency. He was working for the president under the CIA. Because a state of national emergency and a state of war are pretty much considered the same thing by our totally corrupt board of directors, the attorneys we call Congress. Oh. You see, what they use is something called the law of necessity. One of the worst things that was put into the Constitution is the doctrine of necessity, because you see, necessity, when we look at the maxims of law, and how a judge would consider, of course, how the law applies, it's a very simple maxim, and it's one of the most frightening ones out there. It's the one that's most abused. You see, it says very simply that necessity knows no law. Well, guess what? Under a national emergency, there is no law. You might refer to the Lieber Code, but then again, we're not at war. There is no war, so how can the Lieber Code or any other protective measures apply? You see, they've switched. They've done a wonderful switch, bait and switch, and they've created a situation, as outlined in the Iron Mountain report from Iron Mountain. They've switched us to a peace economy. And in order to keep the peace economy, we always have to have the threat of war. We always have to continuously have a threat. We always have to act on that threat. We have to have bloodshed. We have to have terrorist attacks that are created to make us think that there is a threat to justify such a war apparatus in a time of peace. The peace economy relies on the illusion of war. But there is no war. National emergency under the doctrine of necessity, where necessity knows no law. And again, Congress has made little or no distinction between a state of national emergency and a state of war. Folks, if you go look, you're going to find that all of the national emergencies that were declared 50 years ago, some of them are still in existence. The president has to come back every year and redeclare the national emergency. We still have the national emergency from 2001 declared by George Bush, which was redeclared by Obama every year in his office. Okay, that gives the president unfounded, unwarranted, and incredibly massive amounts of power. All he has to do is say that we're an insurgent, a terrorist, any other key word that's in that national emergency. The fight against terrorism, well, there is no such thing. There are no terrorists. There is no terrorism. It doesn't exist. It's a description of something. It's not a thing. It's a description of some thing that doesn't exist. And yet it's the perfect keyword to implement the doctrine of necessity. Necessity being that where there is no law. We have no law, folks. The law is completely lawless. Who is the law? The United States, the federal government, is the law. All the states, all the police, all the municipal police are under federal law. They promote, regulate, and enforce, above all, federal law. Most of the laws in the states are uniform to that federal law. Charles E. Hughes, Supreme Court Justice in 1920, from his book Constitutional Development by Carl Brent Swisher. Quote, "We may well wonder, in view of the precedents now established, whether constitutional government is heretofore mentioned in this republic could survive another great war, even victoriously waged." Yet another war, which was the World War I, the declared war. The conflict known as World War, as the World War, has ended as far as military hostilities were concerned, but was not yet officially terminated. Most of the war statutes, what is a war statute? It's a statute that is only good in times of war, were still in effect. Many of the emergency organizations were still in operation. Well, see, if you have once you have a cessation of the declaration of war, then things by necessity must go back to the way they were. The Constitution is basically reestablished. The whole system of law if you want to call it that, is reestablished. But see, under a state of national emergency, that's not the case. So you can't justify a war. You can never justify a war. Like, we couldn't still say we're at war with Vietnam. That would be ridiculous. So they have the doctrine of emergency. You can carry on an emergency. I mean, we still have the emergency left over from Cuba, as if Cuba is an enemy. They're down there smoking cigars. They don't give a crap about us. You see, if you have a state of emergency, then you have war statutes. Why? Because Congress has made little or no distinction between a state of a national emergency and a state of war. As long as the president is able to declare a state of national emergency, he is then able to declare our worst nightmare. What is our worst nightmare? Presidential directives and executive orders. Presidential directives and executive orders only have authority under a state of war or a state of national emergency. So as long as that is declared, his little declarations that he makes are valid. Well, I mean, as valid as the military can force them to be. We're back, folks.
Is this real? Or is this just rhyme? The world is like a ride. You think it's real, it's a rhyme. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love. The world is like a ride. You think it's real, it's a rhyme. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love. Life goes up and down, round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored. Up and down, round and round, and it's very loud. Don't worry, don't be afraid.
Talking about the declaration of emergency, the presidential directives and executive orders, which only exist because we are in a state of emergency, just like war statutes are only in effect, as well as emergency organizations are only in effect until the war is declared to be non-existent. Well, as long as the president can continue every year by law, the Congress set a law that says it has to be redeclared every year, no problem. It's written up, Obama signs it. Next president's going to sign all of them too. There's a lot that give the president certain powers to do certain things. So here's in 1933, the House passed the Farm Bill, which was actually a really, really horrible bill, which also included some emergency statutes. The doctrine of emergency was basically declared. Here is what Congressman James M. Beck in 1933 said in Congressional Record talking about the Farm Bill. He said, I think of all the damnable heresies that have ever been suggested in connection with the Constitution, the doctrine of emergency is the worst. See, we didn't have this doctrine of emergency with the Confederation, Articles of Confederation. They could declare war, but there's no emergency. That's the Constitution. The doctrine of necessity, the doctrine of all these different doctrines that came out. It means that when Congress declares an emergency, there is no Constitution. Congressman James M. Beck speaking in 1933 from Congressional Record. When the Congress declares an emergency, there is no Constitution. Quote, this means it's death. It is the very doctrine that the German Chancellor is invoking today in the dying hours of the parliamentary body of the German Republic, namely that because of an emergency, it should grant to the German Chancellor absolute power to pass any law, even though the law contradicts the Constitution of the German Republic. Same thing in America. Chancellor Hitler is at least frank or honest about it. We pay the Constitution lip service here in America, but the result is the same. Goes on to say that the Constitution of the United States, as a restraining influence in keeping the federal government within its carefully prescribed channels of power, is moribund, if not dead. We're witnessing its death agonies. For when this bill becomes a law, speaking of the Farm Bill, if unhappily it becomes a law, there is no longer any workable constitution to keep the Congress within its limits of the constitutional, within the limits of its constitutional powers. In other words, all those restrictions just fly out the window. That includes gun control. That includes all the things that we always cry and whine about because we're too afraid to use our guns for their real purpose. Now, it's interesting that he mentions the German chancellor. Now, everybody's going to go, oh, no, we defend, Hitler was good. All right, whatever. I don't care. It's not the point. Okay, listen and be logical and reasonable for a moment. Okay, we said yesterday, in Great Britain, it's called the Defense of the Realms Act. That's what allows the same exact emergency powers or law of necessity to come into effect. Every constitution has one. Why? Because constitutions are Masonic. In France, the situation is called the state of siege. If there's a declared state of siege, well, then the Constitution is suspended and anything goes. In Germany, which is what he was talking about, Mr. Patman, in 1933, in Germany, where Hitler became the dictator, then yes, Obama is the dictator. It's simple as that. It was called Article 48. So he invoked Article 48. Now I want you to listen to these two speeches. Okay, one is by Hitler, one is by the President Roosevelt in 1933. And you tell me what's the difference? If the public safety and order in the German Reich are seriously disturbed or endangered, the President of the Reich, sorry, this is out of the Constitution actually of Germany. If the public safety and order in the German Reich are seriously disturbed or endangered, the President of the Reich may suspend in whole or in part the fundamental rights established, including inviolability of person, domicile, freedom of opinion and expression, freedom of assembly and association, secrecy in communication, and inviolability of property. You see, these are all the inalienable rights that we believe we have, except we make the mistake of allowing the Constitution to give us those rights instead of realizing they come from God. Again, God is the most important legal aspect in law. So when government is acting as God, guess what? Government is God. Government is the dictator. It's just how it is. If you deny God, I don't care what your religious background is, I don't care if you're a Zulu tribesman. If you deny the existence or the concept of the existence of God as a legal entity that rules you over men, that no man can rule over God, then you will always be ruled by men. It's a legal concept. So important. So here it is. Even in the German Reich, even in the Constitution that gave all these rights, so-called rights, which were really privileges, because a right can't be suspended, but a privilege can. What did we have? We had search and seizures, the inviolability of person, property, domicile. We had freedom of opinion and expression. What's that? Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly and association, freedom of communication, and property. All the things that we supposedly cherish so much that are listed in the Constitution of the United States and of all these other constitutions are suspended. State of siege, defense of the realms, Article 48. In the United States, it's simply called the War Powers Act. Remember, that's where this is coming from. Eugene Schroeder, the War Powers Act, and all of his co-authors and co-researchers. Now, are we under the war powers? Yes, because Congress does not distinguish between war and emergency. Now, 12 U.S. Code, Section 95B, we find a very disturbing little piece of information. And it was altered on March 9th, 1933. It just happens to say this. And listen to this very carefully, folks, because this is the creation of a dictator. Quote, the actions, regulations, rules, licenses, orders, and proclamations heretofore and hereafter taken, promulgated, made, or issued by the President of the United States or the Secretary of the Treasury since March the 4th, 1933, pursuant to the amended 12 U.S. Code, Section 95A, are hereby approved and confirmed. Confirmed. What does this mean, folks? If orders, rules, licenses, regulations, actions, and proclamations heretofore and hereafter taken are approved and confirmed automatically by Congress, what does that mean? Well, heretofore means previous. Hereafter means all after this point. So everything that the president does, if he wishes, under emergency statutes or emergency powers, war powers, are hereby approved and confirmed by Congress. This little piece of U.S. code is so damn important, I can't even tell you. Because this literally is the creation of the dictator called President of the United States. The dictator is not Obama. The dictator was not Bush. The dictator was not Lincoln. The dictator was not Roosevelt. The dictator is the corporate office or the corporation soul that is the office of President of the United States and everything and every cabinet under it. I really, really want you folks to understand this. I really want you to understand, more importantly than this, is that the only reason that this has power is because of what we talked about in the first hour of the show, which is the military. Without the military, none of this matters, because this is all by force. Illegal violence. That's what does this. We'll be back.
Hi, neighbor. Welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Or maybe if I press this button. There are so many things to learn about in this world, and so many people who can help us learn, and so many people who can help us learn. Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? In the garden of your mind. You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. In the garden of your mind. It's good to be curious about many things. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think. You can think about things and make believe. All you have to do is think, and they'll grow.
Welcome back, folks. Operation Nation. Clint Richardson here with you, talking about the open-air prison we call the United States of America. What a mess. All of this stuff is hidden. It's very disturbing. And yet you can go and you can verify all of this. If you have the time and the patience, you can see it all for yourself. Nothing I'm reading is opinion here, unfortunately. So here's basically what happened is Roosevelt comes along and he says, oh, well, we have an emergency banking. The banking industry is, we're in a depression. The banks really screwed us over. Therefore, there's an emergency, and we're gonna go ahead and get Congress to assemble and go ahead and declare a national emergency. What he was really doing back in 1933 was really the beginning of a well orchestrated plan leading up to that to create this power officially. Under the and make it quote unquote constitutional. Believe it or not, it is very constitutional to suspend the Constitution. Every Constitution has it built in. It's it's really messed up, of course, but no court is going to say it's unconstitutional because remember, the Bar Association is under the president. It's part of the Department of Justice, the courts. Under the Department of Justice, the police, everything's under the Department of Justice. There is no judicial branch. It's a lie. It's a fabrication. It's a fallacy. There is no third branch of government. the Attorney General of the United States, is under the Department of Justice. Why do you think Obama's not getting in trouble for the gun running incidents down there? Because his Attorney General works for him. He's appointed by him. You think he's going to go against him? I mean, come on, just think, folks. We have no constitutional government. It's a lie. It's a joke. Here's what the newly elected president, President Roosevelt, had to say during his inaugural address. This is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And, well, here's what he said. It says, quote, "I am prepared under my constitutional duty to recommend the measures that a stricken nation in the midst of a stricken world may require. These measures, or such other measures as Congress may build out of its experience and wisdom, I shall seek within my constitutional authority." The word constitutional means absolutely nothing, folks. It means whatever they say it means. If they want something to be constitutional, they'll make it constitutional. That's why they have control of the courts. It's a joke. These measures, or such other measures as the Congress may build out of its experience and wisdom, I shall seek within my constitutional authority to bring to speedy adoption. But in the event that the Congress shall fail to take one of these two courses, and in the event that the national emergency is still critical, I shall not evade the clear course of duty that will then confront me. I shall ask the Congress for the one remaining instrument to meet the crisis. What is that instrument that Congress is going to give him and did? Well, he says, broad executive power to wage a war against the emergency. As great as the power that would be given to me if we were in fact invaded by a foreign foe. March 4th, 1933. He's asking to invoke the War Powers Act, basically. He's asking to invoke the law of necessity, which means, hey, let's confiscate gold. Let's let's do all the things that we couldn't do under the restrictions of the Constitution. It's built into the Constitution. Restrictions are only as good as the fact that they can't be taken away. Well, the Constitution allows it. It's necessity. Necessity knows no law. Remember that. So here he says it, and this is so key, the way he says it. He says power to wage war against the emergency. Folks, what are we waging war against today? Because remember, Congress doesn't distinguish between war and emergency. What are we waging war against today? Terrorism. Wait a minute. How can you wage war against, quote unquote, terrorism? That's not a country. That's not a nation. It doesn't actually exist. It's not a thing. It's not tangible. And yet here we are in a war against the emergency, in a time of peace. Again, the peace economy needing the war and the war corporations to keep the legitimacy of government, of such a massive military. And I want to stress again that none of this is possible. None of this is possible without military. There is no authority in government without the executive. What is the executive? The executive is the sheriff. The executive is the police. The executive is the military. Okay, without military support, in other words, without the support of us, we the people in uniform, we put on a uniform, we become complete idiots. We become absolutely unglued. We forget any duty we have to our families or our friends, our fellow Americans, and we treat them as enemies of the state. Tomorrow I'm going to go into that because we are all declared potential enemies of the state. Really, we are all, according to U.S. Code, enemies of the state. What is the state? Well, it's the United States. It's the District of Columbia and all of its possessions. That is, quote, the state. Continuity of government. It's not the people. No oath, remember, is to the people. The oath is to protect the government from the people. Completely and utterly opposed, the antithesis to the Declaration of Independence, which says the people have the right to get rid of this dang thing. This horrific central government we have. That's what the Declaration says. But you see, the Constitution counters that. It's not part of the United States. I mean, it's so frustrating. The War Powers Act, folks. We are at war not with a nation, not with a people, but with an emergency. We're at war with a word. And that word can be applied to any one of us. Any one of us at any time. Before I leave today, there's been an article that people are passing around. This is the third time it's come, so I might as well read it. Last week, apparently, Justice Scalia, why anybody gives any credence to a man in a black robe and a black muumuu, I don't know, but okay. In times of war, this is what he says, quote, in times of war, the laws fall silent. Well, of course, we just read that. It's law. It's the law of necessity. In times of war, the laws fall silent, he says, adding that he would not be surprised to see it happen again in time of war. What is he referring to? Well, internment camps to hold U.S. citizens, just like in the Japanese Americans were forced in. So here's Justice Scalia talking about the United States that he works for. Okay, the president that he works for, because the only way that would happen is if the president declares it as dictator and uses us as the military to force us into military camps. In times of war, the laws fall silent. We're in war. We've been in war since 1933. What is the report? Senate Report 93-549 from the year 1973. The first sentence says, since March the 9th, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. Isn't that wonderful? He goes on to say it's not, or it's no justification, but it is the reality. Justice Scalia telling you that probably FEMA camps, if you want to call it that, that's been overused, are going to be used to intern American citizens. And guess what? Those citizens will be enemies of the state. There will be terrorists. There will be people like me and you for listening to me. Take care, folks. We'll continue this tomorrow.